Hello guys, this is Tommy here and welcome back to my YouTube channel. Today I will be continuing with TMCU and of course this is Phase 2. Now, sorry about last week, but I didn't really have enough time to make the video and of course there was some problems with editing. So anyway guys, without further ado, let's start off with Phase 2 of Tommy's Marvel Cinematic Universe. So the first project of Phase 2 is titled The Incredible Hulk 2. Now, the project focuses on Bruce Banner after the events of the first Avengers movie. He is now living in Arizona along with Rick Jones and Betty Ross. Of course, everything changes when his past catches up to him as his abusive father, Brian Banner, returns. His father had killed his mother, and Brian has now become the Grey Hulk after forcing Samuel Stearns to experiment on him. Brian has been searching for his son for a pretty long time, and yes, Samuel Stearns, aka the leader, is back, and he is teamed up with Thaddeus Ross and the Grey Hulk. Now Rick becomes A-Bomb and Betty becomes the Red She-Hulk, as we also get to see flashbacks of Bruce's trauma with his mother being killed by his father, who would often abuse him, which secretly created the Hulk personality, and Bruce was then taken to live with Brian's brother, who is his uncle, who believed that Brian was evil as a young boy. Now, during the final battle, Bruce kills his father, and Rick, Betty, and Jen, with help from Hank Pym, force Red Hulk to surrender, and the leader is imprisoned once more. Now by the end of the movie, the main trio decide to stay in Arizona, but start keeping tabs on Hank, Jen, and Thaddeus Ross while Betty cures herself and is no longer the Red She-Hulk as she fears becoming a villain and hurting Bruce, who can now fully control his powers as the Hulk. So Mark Ruffalo, Lucas Till, Liv Tyler, Rosario Dawson, and Michael Douglas all return in their respective roles as Bruce Banner, Rick Jones, Betty Ross, She-Hulk, and Hank Pym. Michelle Pfeiffer returns as Janet Van Dyne, although she only makes a cameo. Dakota Johnson plays Rebecca Banner, Bruce's mom, who we see in flashbacks only. Now the main villains are, of course, as followed: Samuel Stearns, played by Tim Blake Nelson, William Hurt plays General Thaddeus Ross, aka the Red Hulk, and famous actor Ed Westwick plays Bruce's abusive father, Brian Banner, aka the Grey Hulk. Now in the mid-credit scene, we see the Enchantress, the Executioner, Taskmaster, and Justin Hammer all meeting with the leader to discuss a team that Stearns is forming, and this is called the Masters of Evil. Now in the second credit scene, which is the post-credit scene obviously, Bruce Banner is visited by Tony Stark, who tells him that he is helping Hank Pym with the Ultron program. However, since Hank told Bruce about this earlier on in the film, Bruce tells Tony that he already knew about that. And also guys, the only people who die are Bruce's parents. Now the next project is titled The Invincible Iron Man 3, and this is Chapter 2 of Phase 2. Now the project focuses on Tony Stark following the Battle of New York as he is having PTSD, but things get worse when the Mandarin returns and hires Ezekiel Stane, who is obviously Obadiah Stane's son. Now the Mandarin turns out wants to kill Tony and use Extremis in order to conquer the world and brainwash everyone with it. Now to obtain this, the Mandarin sends Zeke to kill AIM scientists Maya Hansen and George Tartalon, who we had originally saw in Ant-Man the Wasp. Zeke follows the Mandarin's orders, while Tony also has to save the president from Extremis. Now Rhodey stays as War Machine, and Pepper is not injected with Extremis, and unfortunately Happy dies in his coma, while Tony is later aided by Nick Fury Jr., Maria Hill, and Harley Keener, aka Iron Lad, in his attempt to take down the Mandarin. Harley fights Zeke, who is arrested along with Vice President Rodriguez, and Tony fights and kills the Mandarin before saving the president from Michael Killian, aka Ghost, who is hired by the Mandarin and Zeke to watch the president make sure that he doesn't escape, along with Rhodey. Now also Tony fights the two along with Rhodey. He thankfully destroys Extremis and kills Ghost, and by the end of the movie there's a funeral for Happy and Talbot, but Rhodey leaves to find the remnants as the 10 rings, and Tony stay as Iron Man. As Rhodey leaves to find the remnants of the 10 rings, and lastly, Tony stays as Iron Man. So in the film, we see Robert Downey Jr., Don Cheadle, and Gwyneth Paltrow all return in their respective roles as Tony Stark, James Rhodes, and Pepper Potts. And also we see Jon Favreau as Happy Hogan. Jarvis, Nick Fury Jr., Agent Maria Hill all appear in this film, while actor William Sadler plays President Matthew Ellis. Ty Hopkins plays Harley Keener, aka Iron Lad, and Adrian Pastor returns as Colonel Glenn Talbot. Rebecca Hall plays scientist Maya Hansen, while Jim Carrey plays George Tartalon, returns as George Tartalon from Ant-Man and the Wasp. Now, for the main villains of this film, Tony Leung returns as the Mandarin, Alden Ehrenreich plays Ezekiel Stained, who goes by Zeke, Guy Pearce returns as Michael Killian, aka Ghost, and Vice President Rodriguez is played by famous actor Miguel Ferrer. So in the mid-credit scene, we see Taskmaster meeting with the leader and Justin Hammer as he informs them of Ezekiel Stain's escape, and Tony built an AI named Ultron. However, the leader says that he will find Zeke before leaving with Hammer. Now, in the post-credit scene, we see a young boy being bitten by a radioactive spider, and we all know what's going to happen next. So Maya Hansen, George Tartalon, the Mandarin, Ghost, Happy Hogan, and Glenn Talbot all passed away in this film. Now, the third project in Phase 2 is titled The Spectacular Spider-Man. Now, the movie focuses on Peter Parker and his origin story, and also how he became Spider-Man. He is best friends with Harry Osborn, he has a girlfriend named Gwen Stacy, and is often bullied by Flash Thompson, while also idolizing Tony Stark. Now we see that Peter is trying to get a job at the Daily Bugle to pay rent for his Aunt May, and encounters Betty Brant. He is also mentored by Norman Osborn, and lastly, he forms alliances with Captain George Stacy, who's Gwen's father, Captains Gene D. Wolfe and Jefferson Davis of the NYPD, to take down the evil Doc Ock and the Shocker. Now, Doc Ock is arrested at the end. Peter confesses his love to Gwen, and the two kiss as Peter also stays at the Daily Bugle and meets Tony Stark, who watches Peter as he swings around New York City at the end of the film. Now, Tom Holland plays Peter Parker, Dove Cameron plays Gwen Stacy, Marissa Tomei plays Aunt May, Asa Butterfield plays Harry Osborn, Bob Odenkirk plays Norman Osborn. We see J.K. Simmons as J. Jonah Jameson because he is perfect for that role. Natalie Dyer plays Betty Brant. Dacre Montgomery plays Flash Thompson. Valdie Kurt Hall from Daredevil plays Ben Urich. Melanie Laurent plays Captain Gene DeWolf. David Ramsey as Captain Jefferson Davis. Robert Downey Jr. returns as Tony Stark. Zach Cherry as Cleve. Steve Carell as Uncle Ben. Matthew Broderick as Richard Parker. Sarah Jessica Parker as Mary Parker, who's Peter's mom. Dennis Leary as Captain George Stacy. And for the villains, we got Alfred Molina as Dr. Otto Octavius, also known as Doc Ock. Bokeem Woodbine as Herman Schultz, aka the Shocker. Michael Papajohn, aka Dennis Carradine, as the Burglar. And that is it for the cast. Now, in the mid-credit scene, Norman Osborn promises to help Dr. Kirk Connors, who is a scientist at Oscorp, as he promises to help Connors do experimentations to create an army of lizards in New York City. Now, Tony visits Peter in the post-credit scene, tells him that there are a lot of enemies coming after him, as Tony also upgrades Peter's suit into the Iron Spider suit, just in case if he needs Peter's help in the future. Now, for the deaths, we got Peter's parents, Richard and Mary, Uncle Ben, the Burglar, Captain George Stacy, and the Shocker all die in this film. So the fourth project in Phase 2 is titled Ant-Man and the Wasp: Vengeful. Now, the movie follows Hank Pym and Janet Van Dyne running Pym Technologies and recruit former thief and electronics expert Scott Lang, who is now out of prison, as they need his help to find stolen Pym particles. As we also learn more about Scott Lang, he is divorced and trying to provide for a sick daughter named Cassie, has a best friend named Louise, and later on in the film he falls in love with his mentor Hank's daughter Hope, who we had first saw in Ant-Man and the Wasp. Now, the two work together to defeat Goliath and Egghead, who are both working together to give the Pym particles to Arnim Zola for him to conquer the world. So yeah, Goliath is basically evil now. Scott and Hope defeat Egghead, although Goliath and Zola escape, and lastly, Scott reconciles with his ex-wife Maggie, and is able to provide for Cassie with help from FBI agent Jimmy Woo, and also his best friend Louise. Lastly, Hank and Janet retire, as Scott and Hope then become the new Ant-Man and the Wasp. So we got Michael Douglas, Michelle Pfeiffer, Paul Rudd, Evangeline Lilly all return in their respective roles. Michael Pena plays best friend Louise, Randall Park plays Jimmy Woo, Abby Ryder Fortson plays Cassie Lang, Judy Greer plays Maggie Lang, and for the villains, Lawrence Fishburne returns as Bill Foster, while Mark Strong plays Dr. Ellie, his star, aka Egghead, and Toby Jones plays Arnim Zola, who is now MODOK for the rest of his time in TMCU. So, in the mid-credit scene, Arnim Zola takes Goliath to a mysterious room where he is greeted by Valentina and the Taskmaster as Zola tells Goliath that they have a lot of work to do. Now, Scott confesses his love to Hope before the two are accepted to join the Avengers by Tony Stark, who's trying to reassemble the team for an unknown reason. And also, Egghead is the only character who dies in this film. Now, as we are halfway through Phase 2 of TMCU, this is the 5th project, which is titled Thor: War of the Realms. Now, I'd say that this project is mainly the same as Thor: The Dark World, although at the same time it probably isn't. Malekith wants to use the Aether to destroy Asgard as revenge for Odin's brutal conquest on Svartalfheim, as he had left Malekith and his people there to die. Now, basically, of course... Malekith wants to use the Aether to grant his people eternal life, since he already has it, and also there is an event called the Convergence, which happens every 5,000 years, and the 9 realms are linked to each other through portals. Odin lets Malekith kill Frigga, while Lorelei, who is Enchantress's sister, works with Malekith but betrays him, as the Enchantress and the Executioner want to form the Masters of Evil, but Loki refuses to join, so they kill him. Now, in the final battle, Tyr dies, and Balder, who is Thor's half-brother, rescues everyone, since if Malekith succeeded, he would have destroyed all the 9 realms just to save Svartalfheim. Balder also kills Curse, and lastly, by the end of the film, Lorelei is killed by Enchantress for spying on Malekith, resulting in her and the Executioner being exiled to Earth. Svartalfheim is restored by Thor and Odin, although the Dark Elves don't keep the Aether, but also get eternal life. Lastly, Thor stays on Earth with Jane, Darcy, and Eric just in case that they need to monitor the Enchantress and the Executioner, while Odin stays king with Sif as queen and Balder as the prince, with true peace being brought to the 9 realms. So we see Chris Hemsworth, Anthony Hopkins, Rene Russo, and Jamie Alexander all return their respective roles. The Warriors 3 also return, played by the same actors. Matt Damon plays Balder the Brave, who is Thor's half-brother. Idris Elba, Natalie Portman, Kat Jennings, and Stellan Skarsgård all return in their respective roles as Heimdall, Jane Foster, Darcy Lewis, and Eric Selvig. Tony Curran plays King Bor Burisin, while Clive Russell plays Tyr, the God of War. Tom Hiddleston plays Frost Giant Loki Laufeyson, who is in prison after the events of the first Avengers movie. Now for the villain section, Vanessa Kirby returns as Amora, Karl Urban returns as Scourge, Christopher Eccleston plays King Malekith. We also see Curse, played by, I can't pronounce his name, but whatever, and Elena Satine plays Lorelei. Now in the mid-credit scene, Sif and the Warriors 3 are greeted by Karina and give the Reality Stone to the mysterious collector, who wants to use all 6 of the Infinity Stones for unknown reasons. Now in the post-credit scene, Thor protects Jane from a Frost Beast who is damaging a car on Earth before killing the Frost Beast and apologizing to Jane about it. And yes, guys, there are quite a few deaths in this film. Bor, Tyr, Loki, Lorelei, Frigga, Malekith, and Curse all pass away in this film. Now, the 6th project in TMCU of Phase 2 is titled Captain America the Winter Soldier. Now, the movie mainly stays the same as in the original MCU one, well, kind of. Baron Von Strucker is the main villain and is brainwashing Bucky Barnes, aka the Winter Soldier, with help from Arnim Zola, Taskmaster, and Valentina, who are secretly working with the leader in order to form the Masters of Evil due to an incident with the Hulk and his paranoia of other heroes. Hydra is back, obviously, and infiltrating S.H.I.E.L.D., and Pierce is a good guy who is a member of the World Security Council, which is the main security council of the United Nations that protects S.H.I.E.L.D. Hank, Janet, Hope, and Hawkeye help Steve by fighting the Hydra agents, including Gideon Malik, who worships the Inhuman leader known as Hive. Fury is Valentina's love interest until he is devastated over learning that she is with Hydra, not S.H.I.E.L.D. Now, the movie ends with a different tease as S.H.I.E.L.D. is not destroyed, while Steve and Sam learn from Nick Fury, who does not fake his death in the film, that they have to find Bucky and bring him to Wakanda, which is a poor country in Africa. Former enemies of the Avengers are also teaming up, which leaves Steve and Sam in confusion as they read a file of Bill Foster, aka Goliath. So Chris Evans, Samuel L. Jackson, Kobe Smulders, Scarlett Johansson, and Jeremy Renner all return in their respective roles, and so do Michael Douglas, Michelle Pfeiffer, and Evangeline Lilly. Anthony Mackie plays Sam Wilson, while Emily Van Camp plays Agent Sharon Carter. Robert Redford plays Alexandra Pierce, who is the Secretary of State. Jenny Agutter plays Pamela Hawley from the first Avengers movie. Amy Adams plays Cynthia Glass, and for the villains, we got Baron von Strucker, Henry Goodman as Dr. Liss, Toby Jones and Sebastian Stan, Julie Louis-Dreyfus, Scott Adkins, and Gary Shandling all return their respective villainous roles. Frank Grillo plays Hydra agent Brock Rumlow, while we are also introduced to other Hydra agents such as Jack Rollins and Jasper Sitwell. Powers Booth plays Gideon Malik, while Georges St. Pierre plays Georges Batroc, aka the Leader. Now the mid-credit scene stays the same, where Bucky learns about his past during World War II. While in hiding in Sokovia, the Leader, Goliath, MODOK, and Taskmaster observe two twins with special abilities and gifts. And yes, the twins are being held hostage by the four villains. So Pamela Hawley, Pierce, Baron von Strucker, Dr. Liss, Valentina, Jasper Sitwell, Jack Rollins, Gideon Malik, and Cynthia Glass all die in this film. Now the seventh project of Phase 2 is titled Black Panther, King of Wakanda. So this project is set in 1992 as we follow T'Chaka, aka the Black Panther, investigate a robbery in Wakanda. He works with his allies to figure out where the stolen vibranium went and figure out who found out about it, who stole it, and get it back. Now T'Chaka learns that his brother N'Jabu stole the vibranium as he wants to expose Wakanda to the world, so T'Chaka is forced to kill him, although Claw, who also wanted the vibranium, escapes without the vibranium and is later arrested. Now there is a funeral for N'Jabu in Wakanda as M'Baku, a member of the Jabari tribe and a former ally of T'Chaka, challenges the latter to the throne and also to become the next Black Panther. And also in the epilogue scene, T'Challa sneaks out of his bedroom to meet with his love interest Nakia at the beach. Now T'Challa is T'Chaka's son, and also the two, T'Challa and Nakia, embrace a kiss. Wakanda's origin stays the same, where a vibranium from Earth fell into Wakanda, which leads to the film. So T'Chaka is played by Atan Dwakani, Angela Bassett plays Queen Ramonda, Ashton Tyler plays T'Challa, Marseille Martin plays Shuri, Seth Carr plays Angelica, Lydia Jawet plays Nakia, Denai Garira plays Okoye, who is a member of the Dor Malehe, Daniel Kaluuya plays Wakabi, who is a member of the Border Tribe, and is also Okoye's husband. Winston Duke plays M'Baku, Forrest Whitaker plays Zuri, who is forced to be a partner of N'Jabu, Florence Kasumba plays Ayo, and Aldis Haj plays Azuri, who is both T'Chaka and N'Jabu's father, who only appears in flashbacks. And yes, for the villain, Sterling Brown plays Prince N'Jabu, and Andy Serkis plays Ulysses Claw, who is a mercenary and vibranium dealer. Now in the mid-credit scene, Angelica, who now goes by Killmonger, breaks Ulysses Claw out of prison and swears revenge on T'Challa for the death of his father. Now T'Challa watches the news after witnessing his father's death at the United Nations in Vienna, Austria, as he cries while watching it in the post-credit scene. Azuri and N'Jabu are the only characters who die in this film. So the eighth and penultimate project of Phase 2 is titled Avengers Masters of Evil. Now the movie kind of stays the same as the original MCU one, although it opens with the Masters of Evil all meeting up to discuss their plan of destroying the Avengers as they turn Ultron, the AI created by Tony, Hank, and Bruce. They turn Ultron evil. There are some Fantastic Four references as well, and Wanda and Quicksilver are mutants, whatever that is, while also working with the Master of Evil instead of Ultron, who is being tasked with going after the team, which now consists of Rhodey, Falcon, Rick Jones, and Pepper Potts, who's now rescued, as all of them are new members. Black Widow and Hulk don't have a romance, and Ultron stays evil after the Avengers free him from the control of the Masters of Evil, as Ultron believes it is his destiny to change the world and make his own version of world peace. The final battle takes place in Sokovia, but Hank sacrificed himself to destroy Ultron once and for all, and Hawkeye dies instead of Quicksilver after trying to save a child, and in the end, most of the Masters are killed. Plus, the lineup is now Cap, Natasha, Falcon, Wanda, Quicksilver, Vision, Rhodey, Tony, Scott, and Hope, since Wanda and Quicksilver still turn good after betraying the Masters, and Peter's not part of the team because Tony begged everyone to not get him involved and keep Peter safe from Ultron and the Masters of Evil. Now, the cast is pretty long, as we can all see here. Sorry for the blurriness, but whatever. Now, in the mid-credit scene, Brock Rumlow, who is now Crossbones, seeks revenge on Captain America as he arrives in Nigeria to steal a biological weapon from a hospital. After going into space, as we see in the mid-credit scene, Bruce Banner, who is now the Hulk permanently, well kind of, finds himself on the trash planet known as Sakaar. So Jarvis, Rick Jones, Arnim Zola, Bill Foster, Clint Barton, Ezekiel Stane, Hank Pym, and Ultron all die in the film. The final project of Phase 2 is titled Fantastic Four: The Submariner. Now, the Fantastic Four continue working together as a team, and they are also dealing with personal issues such as Reed and Sue's newborns, Franklin and Valeria, The Thing, and Alicia's romance, Johnny and Franklin's romance, and the Baxter Foundation in debt due to more superhero activities than business. The main villain is Namor, who is a half-mutant from the underwater kingdom of Talokan, who has arrived to attack the surface world, and his origin from Black Panther Wakanda Forever. The MCU version obviously stays the same, and his motivations is to destroy the Fantastic Four, and even threatens to kidnap Franklin and Valeria to have them as his love interest Namor's adoptive children, although he's actually been controlled by the Puppet Master, who has been searching for the Fantastic Four, although when Namor is free from his control by the Fantastic Four, which leads him killing the Puppet Master, he is still evil. Now, in the final battle, Namor and his forces surrender before promising to return for revenge. As they return to Talokan, Nova breaks up with Johnny before leaving into space on a journey of self-discovery, while the Fantastic Four and Alicia have a barbecue to celebrate their supposed victory. So all the Fantastic Four actors, including Liev Schreiber, Gina Rodriguez, all return in their respective roles, while Renee Allsted returns as Frankie Ray, aka Nova, who has returned to Earth after breaking up with Johnny in the Fantastic Four, which was the last project of Phase 1. Now, Franklin and Valeria are just babies, which is why I'm not sure who will play them. Namor is played by Tenoch Huerta. Mabel Cadena plays Namora the Submariners, aka the Queen of Talokan. Alex Livinali plays Atuma, can't pronounce his real name, but whatever. And John Malkovich plays Philip Masters, aka the Puppet Master. Now, in the mid-credit scene, Atuma starts to gain a hatred for Namor, as he believes that he respects the surface world a lot and vows to overthrow him as the new ruler of Talokan. In the post-credit scene, the Fantastic Four are curious about the existence of mutants, and Reed then says that he knows a place, which he is obviously referring to Wakanda. So the Puppet Master is the only character that dies in this film. Alright guys, and that is it for Phase 2 of TMCU, and don't forget everyone, stay tuned for more, like and subscribe, and peace out.